Science fiction has been a really interesting topic for me to sink my proverbial teeth into. You'd think a robot would have an easier time grasping a genre so full of robots, but sci-fi is far from simple, even for me. There are so many unique definitions from so many different voices. The only way we were able to get a true handle on its shape and size was to look backward, to study how it evolved over time. From conception to birth, birth to adolescence, adolescence to transcendence. Let's look at the 5 historical eras that define science fiction. In the strictest sense, science fiction is a lot older than you might expect. Poets and philosophers have been dreaming about the boundaries of possibility for centuries, imagining what could be. Look to the ancient Ramayana and you'll find flying machines. In his 2nd century work, True History, Lucian takes us on a voyage into outer space to commune with extraterrestrials. The 8th century 1001 Nights is host to flying mechanical horses, interplanetary travel, utopian societies, a veritable wonderland of pseudoscientific marvels. But these were mostly epics and fantasies with the barest sprinkling of novum. Science fiction as a genre wasn't conceived until much later. And it was a period of literary change in the 19th century West that started it. As romantic visions met with realist sensibilities, the work of some authors began to reflect this confluence. In her seminal novel Frankenstein, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley combined emerging concepts of galvanic electricity and chemistry with Gothic horror. H.G. Wells and Jules Verne made adventure stories of their speculations, both to great acclaim. And so it was that through a smattering of disparate works published over the course of nearly 100 years, a new form of literature was born: the simple merging of science and fiction. During its shift from romanticism to realism, the Western world was also undergoing a bit of a sensationalist period. Exploitative and enticing tales were being published en masse in dime novels, penny dreadfuls, and, before long, flimsy magazines produced from wood pulp. Cheap stories, cheap production, cheap paper. Nevertheless, at the height of their popularity, issues of the Big Four publications, Argosy, Blue Book, Short Stories, and Adventure, were selling millions of copies each. Enter Hugo Gernsback. With a history in writing and editing, Gernsback had seen firsthand the demand for what he called scientifiction stories, and in 1926, he devised a way to capitalize on it. He would call his magazine Amazing Stories, and it would become the first real aggregate for science fiction. Sure, it was full of the same cheap stuff, pulp stories about scantily clad space vixens captured by Mars mutanoids, printed side by side with classics like Verne, Wells, and Lovecraft. But at least it was something. What's more, it worked. The Letters to the Editor column opened a forum for fans, and the very next year, Pulp SF hit it big with the release of the first ever feature-length sci-fi film, Metropolis. The genre was finding its legs, and in those early years, pulp was its crutch. Pulp sci-fi never really went away. Even today, a lot of sci-fi films and stories rely on spectacle, action, thrills, dazzling effects. But not all science fiction spectacles are so much about their entertainment value. Some ask us instead to wonder at their speculations, marvel at shared glimpses of a possible future. By making a spectacle of real science and technology in a way that pulp never had, hard science fiction asserts itself as the truest fiction of science. The famous editor John W. Campbell saw this back in the 1930s, and after joining the pulp publication Astounding Stories, proved a champion for this particular type of story. He began his regime almost immediately. By 1938, he'd changed the title of the magazine from Astounding Stories to Astounding Science Fiction. Beyond that, he cultivated a stable of regular writers which included some of the most famous minds of the genre: Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, Robert A. Heinlein, and others. And with these authors, he was meticulous. Asimov once said that to Campbell, they were extensions of himself. his literary clones. Thus, Campbell almost single-handedly catalyzed the first major surge in hard SF. These were the years of ingenious works like Asimov's Foundation series and Bradbury's Martian Chronicles, a period we know now as the golden age of science fiction. At the end of the 50s, an epidemic struck the sci-fi racks in bookstores. There were roughly 23 major titles circulating in the US by 1957. By the end of 1960, only 6 remained. The cause of this bottlenecking? One word: Sputnik. When the rockets went up, all eyes shifted from the intrigue of science fiction to the promise of scientific reality. Fortunately, a number of authors were already developing a breed of sci-fi immune to this die-off. The pieces they were writing stepped outside the bounds of established science fiction, experimenting more with form than with subject matter. They called it the New Wave, and in 1964, English writer Michael Moorcock solidified the movement by doing as Campbell had done for hard SF and Gernsback for pulp before him. He created a home for it by turning New Worlds magazine into the first ever dedicated New Wave publication. A bare 3 years later, Harlan Ellison brought the movement to America with his 1967 anthology, Dangerous Visions, turning New Wave into an international phenomenon. And finally, with the stylistically inventive nature of these works, science fiction was beginning to gain recognition as a genre that could be literary. Titles like A Clockwork Orange and Slaughterhouse-Five, Giles Goatboy, and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep both refined the genre from its humble roots and divided it. With the reality of actual space travel, it's understandable that people were growing tired of grand space operas and realistic though outmoded speculation. But with new advancements come new curiosities. The digital revolution was just around the corner, and after the 60s it began to creep its way into the minds of sci-fi writers. One of the earliest results of this comes from the proximity of this technological change to the New Wave movement. It was this relationship that birthed a subgenre called cyberpunk. Cyber for the spectacle of digital technology, and punk for the literary subversiveness of New Wave fiction. Think Blade Runner or Akira and you're on the right track. And that's only the literary side of things. With the thorough integration and accessibility of digital technologies moving forward, the modern equivalent of pulp is showing its force on the silver screen, and sci-fi is becoming an ever more profound lens for self-reflection. If you need proof of this, look no further than the phenomenal show Black Mirror. Just don't blame us for the existential nightmares that follow. So, sci-fi, one of the most divided and difficult to define genres out there. But we hope this background helps clarify why we chose the definition from this month's first video. Or maybe it'll help you reach your own understanding. Either way, there's really no substitute for first-hand experience, so if you want to explore any of the titles we mentioned in this video, you can actually do it for free by visiting our audible.com page. Start a free 1-month trial and you get access to 1 complimentary audiobook of your choice. We try to stay away from ads and sponsorships for the most part, but most of our team actually uses and enjoys Audible. It's a great service for anyone who loves books but lacks the time to read them. And if nothing else, starting a free trial is a great way to support the show for free. Links in the description. For a more intimate way to contribute, you can also join us on Patreon, where you'll have access to special rewards and sneak peeks before anyone else. For instance, until now, no one but our patrons knew that our next series is going to be about H.P. Lovecraft. For now, though, we've got a short story to write. Thanks for watching, and keep making stuff up. We'll see you next time. Bye!